broadcast of It's Time with Reverend Nathaniel W. Martin. Here's Reverend Martin.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Blackwell. Let me get this mess out of the way. Let me say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, but certainly never good night and never, ever goodbye, because I hate goodbyes from childhood. My name is Reverend Nathaniel Wayne Martin. I'm the pastor of the New Life Institutional Baptist Church here in the city of Los Angeles, and we're located at 8916 South Main Street. We are blessed to be sharing the worship experience, the premises, with the Shiloh Missionary Christian Church, which is under the direction and guidance and the pastorage of my good friend, the Holy Shepherdess, Dr. Della F. Holiness. And I want to wish a great shout out to both congregations at this time. We thank God so much that He has brought the two of us together. And they always say when the Baptists and the Charismatics get together, there's always going to be a shouting in the camp. And truly God has blessed us fellowship. It has been going on now since 2016, I believe it is, and it has been a blessing ever since. And so we thank God for that. My, how the time goes by. The name of this presentation, this offering that you are currently watching or looking at, regardless of where you see it on YouTube or wherever, is entitled It's Time, and this is, of course, is a social justice outreach, social activism. I've always felt that we could not just hide behind, as Dr. King said, the anesthetizing effects of stained glass windows. Of course, he said it of our white brothers, but it's equally true of our black brothers as well. And forgive me for using that term, white and black, even though I know, and you know, that there's no such thing as a race occurring in nature. It's a social construct, it's a political construct, and it is a social concept. It's a structure. And that's what we have been fighting against even prior to the onset of the Atlantic slave trade. And we have been battling against that big myth, that lie, and it is as hard to stamp out as belief in Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny. But we're going to work on it, because its detriment have been far beyond Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny. It has impacted us economically from the very beginning, and it impacts all of our major areas and institutions in which we are dependent upon, whether it's education or whether it's public health or whether it's housing. It certainly has hurt us very bad in housing, and because it is a political stratagem, its morphology has been such that it's hard to detect, hard to see, but you know it when you get around it. You know it by its effect. And so we feel that the social justice aspect of our Christian walk must never be neglected, because Jesus was a social activist, regardless of how the white supremacists under Billy Graham and Jerry Falwell and that ilk tried to say Jesus stayed out of politics. He did not stay out of politics. It was politics that got him killed. But let me not digress before I read our revelation of Scripture, which is here in the 15th chapter of the book of Deuteronomy in the Old Testament, picking up the reading at verse number 12. And it says, "And if thy brother, an Hebrew man or an Hebrew woman, be sold unto thee, and serve thee 6 years, then in the 7th year thou shalt let him or her go free from thee. And when thou sendest them out free from thee, thou shalt not let him or her go away empty. Thou shalt furnish him or her liberally out of thy flock and out of thy floor, and out of thy winepress of that wherewith the Lord thy God hath blessed thee, thou shalt give unto them, him or her. That is the reading of the one of the most direct biblical mentions of reparations for slavery, for labor and services rendered. And as you can tell, as I always say from the very beginning, it is in quite a contrast to what was done to our formerly enslaved brothers and sisters, mothers and fathers, great grandparents, aunties, uncle, and the like. As W.B. Du Bois said, we were a laboring class, but we were landless and we were homeless. And remember, if you're in America and you are landless and you're homeless, you're in trouble because you don't have anybody looking out for you. You have nobody to call on, and your prospects or to turn around and go right back into slavery by another name. That's what W.B. Du Bois called it. If the other fellow gets to set your wages, if the other fellow gets to set the price you'll be paid for the crop that you've grown and are trying to sell, then if you don't set the price and if you don't set the salary, then that's slavery by another name. It's always going to be the lowest price. And believe me that with the animus and the antipathy of the Southern aristocracy and the plebeian Southerners who had lost the war, they did not look upon the newly freed 4 million slaves as their sisters and their brothers. Far from it. They did not look upon them as their friend. Don't you believe it? And they were bitter, they were angry, and they wanted to get even. And as soon as their friend Andrew Johnson, who succeeded to the presidency upon the assassination of President Abraham Lincoln, just as soon as Andrew Johnson became president, he began to pass out blanket amnesty. Can you imagine you have a person have committed treason against the United States, but then here comes another man who is a sympathizer with them, and he gives them blanket amnesty for what? For the lost cause. What was the lost cause? The lost cause was treason. It was treason, I tell you. They broke it with the Southerners, the Confederates, leaped on the Northerners in order to have what? Their way. They wanted to have the fruits and the benefits and the advantages unhindered of slavery. And as Lincoln said, they would rend the Union rather than let the Union survive. And the Union said we would just have to accept war rather than let this Union perish. And the poetic language says, and the war came. Lincoln's second inaugural address. I would invite you to spend a little time reading W.B. Du Bois' Black Reconstruction, because it's looks upon the Reconstruction era in a positive light rather than the Southerners. Remember, the Southerners were dead set against anybody helping the formerly enslaved. They did not want any help for the formerly enslaved. They wanted the slaves to be landless, homeless, no credit, no employment, nowhere to go, nowhere to turn, so that the Southern planters could do with the formerly enslaved as they would. And with the help of Andrew Johnson, they were very successful in reaching that. Andrew Johnson, his greatest comparison is to the president incumbent in the White House, Donald Trump. Donald Trump is inept, just like Andrew Johnson was inept, but he had a base, and that base is the same base that Andrew Johnson had, which was the enslavers, the slave traders, the slave owners, the plantation owners, the people who fomented the war, the Civil War, and that was their red meat. And so likewise, we see that in the upcoming election, we must likewise be on our guard, because that same sentiment, yes, that same sentiment is out there. The reason why Hillary Clinton lost is because of slavery. How you say that, Reverend Martin? Because the Electoral College is a direct instrument creation of slavery. It was developed by the Congress in order to dilute the representation of the slaveocracy. Remember, most of the northern states moved their slaves, got rid of slavery, and moved it down into the southern parts of the nation. But the benefits of slavery and the advantages of slavery constantly and continually accrued to the northern merchants and the northern manufacturers, because they manufactured the chain, they manufactured the clothes that the slaves wore, and many of the implements and the like that were used in slavery, from the coffles that went around the neck to the shackles that went around the feet, and most of the instruments of cruelty that were employed to keep the slaves in check. And then, of course, the main instrument or commodity that was produced by slave labor was, of course, cotton, King Cotton. And who received the cotton? Why, it was the northern merchants. Who sold it to them was the southern merchants, direct off the plantation to the southern merchant. And the southern merchant sold it overseas to England. Yes, England and France. And so everybody was making money off of the slaves, whether they had a clerical collar around their neck or whether they had a cowhide whip in their hand. They were all continuing to benefit. And so connection is still there. So as a result of the Electoral College, said instead of because the slave was defined by the Black's Law Dictionary as a human being who is not a person but a thing. Who is not a person but a thing. Human being, slave is a human being who is not a person but a thing. And so the Northerners did not want the Southern slaveocracy to be able to count their slaves for the purposes of representation, because the Northerners said, well, you said that slave was not a human being, was not a person. But yet now you want to use them to represent in order to bring up your number of representatives here in the Congress. It's a very interesting read if you take time to consider it. The calculation that the Congress of the United States, Congress of the Union made, was a very callous calculation. And so they said, well, instead of it being that if the Negro is not a man, then we have to have 3 Negroes to make one person. So they come up with the call a 3/5 clause, and that 3/5 clause, and then the Electoral College, which was the little group that came together after the tally of the general election had been tallied, and based upon the representatives of each individual state, then of course they were able to cast their ballot on behalf of the people, the person that their state had nominated or voted for. And that Electoral College has been the bane of voting. We don't have one man, one vote. We have the vote, but then the vote don't get counted until the Electoral College says so. And that's why Hillary Clinton lost, not because she didn't get the vote. She got 3 million more votes mind you, than Donald Trump. But she was killed by the Electoral College. Donald Trump got 303, and she had 200 and something or less. But he got there first. And so those are the things that we are considering that we must take into account as we get ready to vote again. I was in Washington, D.C. last Friday for the March on Washington, and I'm telling you that our white brothers and sisters are joining in with us all across this nation. There was a great representation of all 50 states there at the Lincoln Memorial on last Friday. And everybody there is united in one thing, that we must have a change in the leadership of the country. Now, it is said here that there are 6 states that matter, with the states of Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and, of course, Wisconsin. Those states have figured in every election since 2000. Remember, Florida figured in the 2000 election. That's why we got the Supreme Court to select George Walker Bush, G.W. Bush, and we went into the dark ages with that. And then subsequently we've had trouble with the state of Wisconsin, the state of Michigan. You know, when Obama was elected president the first time, there was so much trouble in Michigan that they couldn't even count that vote. And the Secretary of State in Wisconsin finagled the voting machines and finagled the voting booths, and because he was a Republican. And as a result, the people stood in line for hours and hours just to vote in the state of, all across the state of Wisconsin. I'm saying all of that because in 2016, Trump won Wisconsin by he only won it by 23,000 votes. But 129,000 black people, yes, black people did not vote. So 129, if Trump won by 23,000 and 129,000 had voted in Wisconsin, Trump would have lost the state of Wisconsin. Pennsylvania, which is another state that's a toss-up, Trump won that state by 44,000 votes, but 347,000 black people did not vote. I'm going down this list because of the fact that these people have, these Pew Research and the Brookings Institute have taken such great pains to provide us with this data and statistic, so it would behoove us to take advantage of looking at it. And please believe me, I believe that you need to vote, and you need to get out of that house or get your mail-in ballot. That's not the word for it. And get that ballot filled out and get it back in the mail and back, and check to make sure that they received your ballot as an absentee ballot. Thank you. And make sure they got your absentee ballot back. If it's good enough for Donald Trump and his ilk and his family and his guild, it is very so good enough for the masses of the rest of us. We may not be millionaires, but we can vote by mail. And let me continue. North Carolina, Trump won by 173,000 votes, but 487,000 black people who were eligible to vote, 487,000 people in the state of North Carolina did not vote. The same holds true for Georgia. Trump won the state of Georgia by 211,000 votes, but 898,000 black people did not vote. Did not vote in the 2016 election. And then the big state of Florida, Trump won Florida by 113,000 votes, but 1.4 million black people in the state of Florida in 2016 did not vote. And so by not voting, you voted for Donald Trump. Yes, Georgia, Florida, North Carolina, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. By not voting, you voted for Donald Trump. And the same thing holds true as I said. It's important that we vote. It's necessary that we vote. It's beneficial and advantageous that you vote, because your voting matters. Your voting matters. I can't say that enough. Your voting matters. I don't care where you go to church, your voting matters. I don't care if you don't go to church, your voting matters. Your vote determines who the president is going to be. You wouldn't be stuck with this knucklehead if all of us had voted. But by the same token, we don't want the Democratic Party to take our vote for granted. Because you remember the prevailing wisdom in the 2016 election among the Democrats was, you let us give us Donald Trump, we know we can beat him. And see how that worked out. And then Chuck Schumer, the illustrious erstwhile voting strategist, campaign strategizer, and said they could easily lose 2 working collar votes per state and still pick up enough undecided new voters in Nevada, Arizona, and places like that. And so they neglected. I said they neglected. The Democratic machine, the Democratic Party machine, the DCCC, whatever, Democratic Central Campaign Committee, omitted states that they didn't go talk to the Negroes in Michigan. So Michigan Negroes stayed home. They didn't go talk to the Negroes in Florida. So Florida Negroes stayed home. If they had just went to their base, if they hadn't took Negroes for granted, we would not be dealing with this nightmare that we're dealing now. There's blame enough to go around on both sides. Now coming up, we all must put our differences aside and get to the polls, souls to the polls, walk to the polls, drive to the poll, do the absentee ballot thing. Don't do like Trump advised his people to vote absentee and then go down and vote at the poll. Don't do that. That's illegal. He's a fool, but he said it, and some fool is going to do that. But by all means, vote. And when you send your absentee ballot, vote early enough absentee so that you can get it back in and you can call and make sure. Now, did y'all get my absentee ballot? Because you can do that. You can check and make sure they got your ballot in time for it to be counted, because there's a process of some type of when you get the application, absentee voter pamphlet and everything, you got a number, and then you got you can use that number to call and check did they get that particular number back into the precinct. You're allowed to do that. You're allowed to do that. And so please, ma'am, and please, it's too important. We have to have cooperation from the federal head of the government of the United States of America, that means the President of the United States, Chief Magistrate, in order to work with the states in order to get the CDC to come up with a vaccine. And you know it's going to be hard because there are too many obstacles and too many stumbling blocks. And as I was discussing with Reverend Blackwell before the show started, given our history as black people in the public health sphere and how we've been misused and abused by the experiments, among them the Tuskegee experiment, where they injected our people with syphilis and then would not treat them because they wanted to observe and watch clinically the progress of syphilis and how it affected people, and they let all those people suffer with syphilis, and some of them went crazy. All of them died. I think only by 1 or 2 people still survive, and they were able to tell the story finally. And under Bill Clinton administration, they received an apology. Of course, no money, but an apology. What I'm saying is, given the way we've been treated in the public health sphere, because our entrance into the public health sphere was through slavery, and so we wasn't well treated in slavery. You wasn't to be receive the treatment, of a Mayo Clinic, but when they get the virus, we're going to have to you're going to have to dispense it with great caution and great equanimity, and it's going to have to be egalitarian across the board. And if it's going to work, you're going to have to see how some people receive it and the like. And so we're not going to get no big boost out of this first vaccine for some time, because a lot of us are going to be skeptical and cynical, and with good reason. But we do need the virus, or we do need the vaccine, I'll put it that way. We know that we must get that vaccine available, and it must be dispensed. It must, even though it must not be mandated, but enough of us must get that vaccine in order for its efficacy to be demonstrated. Now, I was blessed when I grew up with I was growing up, born in '47. Just at that time, they were coming into a cure for polio and a vaccine for at that time we called it consumption, which they call it tuberculosis. But and of course we had to get vaccinated and everything, and the vaccine worked for polio. The vaccine worked for tuberculosis. And as a result, tuberculosis and polio was almost stamped out in the United States of America until the people that began to immigrate from other countries that did not have a vaccine program to stamp out polio began to come into the country. And then, of course, we've had not a resurgence, but it has been reintroduced. But that's neither here nor there. I have made my statement on the necessity and the need for the vote, and why we need to vote, what's at stake in our voting. And we must hold Joe Biden's foot to the fire, Kamala Harris's foot to the fire. Oh, that was another reason you must vote, because the white supremacists in this country, and please believe me, 75 to 85% of the white evangelical Protestant born-again Christians vote for Donald Trump, because they want to maintain their privilege. Remember, Frederick Douglass said, a privilege is never given up voluntarily. You're going to have to demand privilege. Of course, he said also that to my brothers and sisters who are inheriting slavery, he who would be free must himself strike the blow. Remember, he whooped his slave breakers, man. His owner sent him down to Mr. Covey to break him. He was a nigger breaker, and Frederick Douglass whooped his behind. Whooped him so that the man was ashamed to tell the other people that Frederick Douglass had whipped him. And as a result, well, never mind. I want to thank you all for paying attention to the broadcast today. You need to learn your black history. It's very interesting, very informative, very helpful, very uplifting and inspiring. A lot of it is comical. But as I sign off here, I'm under 5 minutes. Remember now, we got to continue to pray. Don't think I don't believe in prayer. I believe in prayer. I talk about social justice, I pray. I talk about social activism, and I pray. But I'm like the Africans that said, when you get through praying, start walking. Put some foots on them prayers. so we must pray for our medical people, and we surely must pray that we can get this vaccine dispensed to everybody that wants it, that needs it, that's got to have it, in order that the country can go forward. Because it can't go forward until we get a vaccine or get a cure for the coronavirus. Then we got to get another stimulus check in everybody's hands before Christmas. Otherwise, it's going to be a sad Christmas around this country. And so that $2 trillion that the Democrats were ready to compromise on, they got to get that $2 trillion signed and get it into the hands of people like you and like me. Because we put the money back into the economy, whereas Bank of America is going to put it offshore. All right. As I wrap up, as I close up, as I say good afternoon and God bless to all of you. Remember, I'm praying for you. I love you. And I want the best for you, because if you ain't out there, it's going to do no good for me to be in here. And so I'm praying for you to make it. And I hope you praying for me to make it. And as I always say, if you're working for somebody and they don't want to pay you, get you a side hustle quick as you can. Get you another side business going, and quick as you can. And if they don't want to pay you, you go in there and you tell them, oh, look, take this job and put it where the sun don't shine. In other words, if they don't want to pay you, stop working for them. All right, Doc. Thank you now.